And it's also my great pleasure to introduce someone who has just worked his guts off to be here this evening and has finally made it. It's been a grand tour of seemingly half of Australia. So please welcome the Minister for Financial Services and Superannuation, the Honourable Bill Shorten. Please make him welcome.
Can you hear me? Listen, my name's Bill Shorten. I'm the Federal Superannuation Minister. Because I've got to go to Canberra tomorrow to work on problem gambling, which is a little funny considering where some of you will end up tonight. I did want to come here in person. I wanted to come here in person for a couple of reasons. So I've just flown up here. I'll get the 5 a.m. plane back to Canberra tomorrow morning. One, I wanted to come up is that there's been a bit written about self-managed superannuation funds. Indeed, the Treasury Department said that self-managed superannuation funds were some sort of a tax, were a tax instrument as opposed to being about all the other purposes, about saving for adequacy in retirement. So I wanted to say this. The current Gillard government does not believe that SMSFs are illegitimate. That's worth clapping yourselves. We believe in Australia that if you save money for your retirement, you should have the ability to choose the method by which you take your own precautions and steps to preserve your income for when you retire. What I mean by that is, if you want to be in a retail fund or an industry fund, or if you're in the public sector or a corporate fund or in an SMSF, it is not a beauty parade as far as the government's concerned. All of the various forms of superannuation, in the opinion of the government, they've all got their own beauty. The second thing I wanted to say to you briefly is governments can't win elections by having good superannuation policies, but if you don't have a superannuation policy in Australia, if you're a political party, then you shouldn't be in government. This government is committed to increasing compulsory superannuation. We also are committed now to increasing the concessional caps for superannuation. At the moment, Australia is the 4th best nation in the world in terms of funds under management. We come 4th in the world. But we only come 7th in the world in terms of adequate retirement income systems. So in other words, whilst we're doing all right getting money under management, our retirement income system needs to be better. So one of the things we are proposing to do from 2012 is that if you are over the age of 50, which rules out a lot of you, but when a lot of you get to the age of 50, we're saying that we want to lift the concession so that you can put 50k a year in and it's taxed concessionally. Now, I accept that for some of you, you think there shouldn't be any concessional caps at all, and I can see that argument. But let me also say to you that we're also trying to do something at the other end of the market. For people who earn less than $37,000 a year, I worry what's going to happen to them when they turn 60 and 65 and retire. Sure, there's the old age pension, but that is not enough. So we're going to support people who earn less than $37,000 a year and put in up to $500 for their super, or basically abolish the concessional tax. So if you earn up to $37,000 a year, you'll be basically paying no tax on the money you put into super, which is a good thing. The other thing which we're intending to do, as I've said, is move the superannuation from 9 to 12%. Now, SMSFs, you discover that everyone in the world is an expert on SMSFs, and you read the newspapers, you hear they're good, they're bad, they're ugly, they're whatever. As I said at the start of my little chat to you, I, as the Minister for Superannuation, think that SMSFs are a unique feature of the Australian system. I ultimately believe, increasingly, that a lot of people in industry funds and retail funds are going to demand of those funds that they have more attributes like an SMSF. In other words, the thing which attracts me to the SMSF model is the amount of control you have over your future. We are proposing some changes to SMSFs, none of which should panic anyone, and the organisation who's put this conference on is being involved with all of the discussions we're having. We've made it clear we're keeping our election promise that we won't touch the 5% limit on collectibles. We're making it clear that we want to increase the competency of the professionals that work with SMSFs. That's just prudential. But you can rest assured, I think that Australia can be the best country in the world for a whole lot of reasons. We're an island, so we don't get some of the problems that other countries get. We've got a lot of coal and a lot of iron ore. We have a lot of sunlight most of the time. But what we also have is superannuation. And I think that SMSFs have an opportunity to export the skills of SMSFs all through the world. I think there are lessons for the rest of the world to follow from our SMSF sector. Anyway, I've got to go back to Canberra tomorrow morning, and I just say this in closing. This government, and I'm going to make this point, how you vote's up to you, but if you think superannuation's important, I'll just make this point. We want to increase super 9 to 12. We want to increase the concessional caps. We don't think that the Henry Tax Review, where it said that you can pay your full tax on super, then you get it back in tax rebates, we think, and that's the Liberal policy, we think that's a clunky, messy system. If I've got one message that I tell the cabinet ministers in Canberra, superannuation should always be concessional. If it's compulsory, it should be concessional. The other thing that we need to do is take away the tax uncertainty of it. We need to put not too fine a point, we need to stop monkeying around with the tax treatment of superannuation so young people in their 20s and 30s can have some certainty that as a tax planning tool, superannuation will not change. So I wanted to give you an insight tonight that we think that the system should be concessional, it should be compulsory, it should be more than 9%. Anyone who stands in the way of moving it to 12 and beyond, you've got to ask them what are they earning in super. I want the whole of Australia to be able to retire one day and not go back to living in poverty for the last 30 years of their life. And rest assured, this government does respect SMSFs. That's why I bust a gut to be here and to bail up your drinks, because I think that SMSFs are an important part of the strength of the Australian superannuation system. Have a lovely evening. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Minister Bill Shorten, ladies and gentlemen. Can I ask you one question? Can I ask you one question? It's just one question. It's an out-of-order question. How do you... It's got nothing to do with super. It's more about... It's a politics question. How do you feel about, when you hear the rumours that, you're quite possibly the next Prime Minister of Australia?
Let's be very clear. Julia Gillard is outstanding. And I'll give you an attribute. About, well, all right, whatever you say, but I'll give you an attribute which doesn't ever get written up in the newspapers. There's an old saying that when good news is getting up in the morning, bad news is often running. And I have to say that sometimes the newspapers don't print good news, but we've got a Prime Minister who today has sorted out the flood levy and got it through the House of Reps because it's appropriate that all Australians, along with the government, get behind Queensland in the floods. She is one of the most emotionally intelligent people to ever hold the job. She is one of these very rare politicians whose ego is not out of proportion. So I hope she's there for a very long time, long enough for us to get the concessional caps up. Cheers.
Thanks. Thanks very much.